are everywhere. So we are acting on the promise in our plan to change, building renewal on foundations of national security, border security, and economic security. As the Prime Minister said earlier this month, a new era in the threats that we face demands a new era for defence and security. That's why we took the decision to prioritise our defence spending by reducing overseas development aid, so that defence spending will now rise to 2.6% of GDP by April 2027, including the contribution of our intelligence agencies. That uplift provides funding for my right honourable friend, the Defence Secretary, with £11 billion increase in defence spending and a £600 million uplift for our security and intelligence agencies. That investment will deliver not only security, but also renewal. In Aldermaston and Lincoln, in Portsmouth and Filton, on the Clyde and in Rosyth, investment in Scotland, jobs in Scotland, defence for the United Kingdom, opposed by the Scottish National Party, delivered by this Labour government. And as we invest in our armed forces, our military technology and our supply chains, that also brings huge opportunities. £4.5 billion of investment in munitions, made in factories from Glasgow to Glasgow, Stevenage to Radway Green, and over £6 billion to upgrade our nuclear submarine production, supporting thousands of jobs across Barrow, Derby and Sheffield. We will make Britain a defence industrial superpower, with the jobs, the skills and the pride that come with it. A more unstable world presents new challenges at our borders too, where conflict has opened the way for organised criminal gangs. The British people rightly expect us to have control of who comes into our country. The party opposite said that they would take back control. Well, Mr. Speaker, they lost control. With one failed policy after another. No control, no security. In contrast, in the budget last year, I announced £150 million to establish the new Border Security Command. And today, to support the integrity of our borders, I can announce that that funding will increase with up to £280 million more per year by the end of the spending review for our new Border Security Command. Alongside that, we are tackling the asylum backlog. The party opposite left behind a broken system. Billions of pounds of taxpayers' money spent on housing asylum seekers in hotels, leaving people in limbo and shunting the cost of failure onto local communities. We won't let that stand. So I can confirm today that, led by the work of my right honourable friend, the Home Secretary, we will be ending the costly use of hotels to house asylum seekers in this Parliament. Funding that I have provided today, including from the Transformation Fund, will cut the asylum backlog, hear more appeal cases and return people who have no right to be here, saving the taxpayer £1 billion a year. That is my choice, Mr. Speaker. That is the Labour choice. That is the choice of the British people. And Mr. Speaker, if we want national security in a dangerous world, that does not stop at the strength of our armed forces or at our border. I have long spoken about what I call securonomics, the basic insight that in an age of insecurity, government must step up to provide security for working people and resilience for our national economy. Put simply, where things are made and who makes them matters. Take energy. The Tories neglected our nuclear and renewable sectors and closed our gas storage facilities, leaving us exposed to hikes in energy prices when Russia invaded Ukraine. And it was working people who paid the price for their mistakes. On this side of the House, we understand that energy security is national security. And so, because it is the right choice for bills, the right choice for jobs and the right choice for growth. This government is investing in the biggest rollout of nuclear power for half a century. A £30 billion commitment to our nuclear-powered future. Yesterday, my right honourable friend, the Energy Secretary, and I announced £14 billion for Sizewell C, producing the energy to power 6 million homes, supporting more than 10,000 jobs, including 1,500 apprentices, to build the nuclear workforce of tomorrow. And Mr. Speaker, that's not all. We are investing over £2.5 billion in a new small modular reactor programme. Our preferred partner is Rolls-Royce, a great British company based in Derby. This investment is just one step towards our ambition for a full fleet of small modular reactors, as well as providing a route for private sector-led advanced modular reactor projects to be deployed across the UK. Alongside these, we are making nuclear-approved land available in Sellafield to attract private investment and create thousands more jobs. And I'd like to thank my honourable friend from Whitehaven and Workington for his work in this area. And to strengthen Britain's position at the forefront of a global race for new nuclear technologies, a cause championed by the Mayor of the East Midlands, Claire Ward, and my honourable friend, the member for Bassett Law, and to support pioneering work taking place in West Burton in Nottinghamshire, we are investing £2.5 billion in nuclear fusion. And to back British industries, pioneering work in carbon capture and storage will take place. Last year, we announced funding for 2 sites, on Merseyside and in Teesside, where we are building the world's first commercial-scale CCUS plant. Today, I can announce support for the Acorn project in Aberdeenshire, supporting Scotland's transition from oil and gas to low-carbon technology, a challenge and an opportunity well understood by the leader of Scottish Labour, Anna Sarwar, and by my right honourable friend, the Scottish Secretary. And we are also backing the Viking project in Humberside, a cause long supported by my honourable friend, the member for Great Grimsby and Cleethorpes. And because I am determined to make sure that the energy technologies of the future are built here and owned here, and that those jobs come to Britain, with spending review decisions means that we can invest in the wholly publicly owned Great British Energy. Great British Energy, headquartered in Scotland. These are investments to make sure the towns and cities which powered the last industrial revolution will play their part in our next industrial revolution, to reduce our reliance on overseas oil and gas and protect working families from price shocks. A new generation of energy industries for a renewed Britain. That is my choice. That is Labour's choice. That is the choice of the British people. Economic security relies on our ability to buy, make and sell more here in Britain. In April, this government faced a choice: to let British Steel in Scunthorpe go under or to intervene. We heard representations from workers. Mr. Speaker, that choice was the choice not of the metal trader, but this Labour government. We heard representations from workers' trade unions and from my honourable friend, the member for Scunthorpe. My right honourable friend, the Business Secretary, and I were not prepared to tolerate a situation in which Britain's steel capacity was fatally undermined. We were not prepared to see another working-class community lose the pride, lose the prosperity, lose the dignity that industry provides. So we did intervene to save British Steel and the jobs that come with it, and I am proud of that decision. And this government will invest in Scunthorpe's long-term future and the future of steelworks across our great country, and in a vote of confidence in our homegrown steel. Heathrow Airport, where we are backing London by backing a third runway, has signed the UK Steel Charter, a multi-billion-pound airport expansion backed by Labour, built with British steel. and as we build our train and tram lines, our military hardware and our new power stations, that will mean orders for steel made in Britain. In Sheffield Forge Masters, where we are investing in nuclear-grade steel, and in Port Talbot, where this spending review confirms the £500 million grant to Tata Steel. A future for British-made steel, and a proud future for Britain's steel communities. Things built to last, built here in Britain. That is my choice. That is Labour's choice. That is the choice of the British people. This Labour government is backing British business. There will be more to come in the weeks ahead with our 10-year infrastructure strategy and our modern industrial strategy too. A plan drawn up in partnership with businesses and trade unions. And when I speak to business people and entrepreneurs about what they need to succeed, they say they need the chance to innovate. They need access to finance. They need a deep pool of talent. We have heard that message, and so today we are taking action. First, innovation, a great British strength. Our universities are world-leading, and we are proud of them. We want our high-tech industries in Britain today to continue to lead the world in the years to come, in car production, in aerospace, and in life sciences. So we are backing our innovators, backing our researchers, and backing our entrepreneurs, with R&D funding rising to a record high of £22 billion per year by the end of the spending review. And because homegrown AI has the potential to solve diverse and daunting challenges, as well as the opportunity for good jobs and investment here in Britain, I am announcing £2 billion to back this government's AI action plan, overseen by my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Science and Technology. And second, to champion those small businesses seeking access to finance as they look to grow, I am increasing the financial firepower of the British Business Bank, a 2/3 increase in its investments, increasing its overall financial capacity to £25.6 billion to help pioneering businesses start up and to scale up, backing Britain's entrepreneurs, backing Britain's wealth creators. And third, as we invest, if we are to thrive in the industries of the future, we must give our young people the skills that they need to contribute to our national success. As scientists, engineers and designers, as builders, welders and electricians. I know the ambition, the drive and the potential of our young people. And it cannot be right that too often those ambitions and that potential are stifled. When young people who want training find courses are oversubscribed and are turned away at the door, forcing growing businesses eager to recruit to look elsewhere. Potential wasted and enterprise frustrated. So today I am providing record investment for training and upskilling. £1.2 billion a year by the end of the spending review to support over 1 million young people into training and apprenticeships so that their potential, their drive and their ambition is frustrated no longer. And on the subject of skills, Mr. Speaker, we should all recognise the leader of the opposition's own commitment to lifelong learning. At the weekend, she promised to learn and to get better on the job. Well, I am sure that members on the benches opposite will be supporting her in that endeavour. Good luck with that. As we build a strong and secure and resilient economy, working people must feel the benefits. That starts with the security of a proper home. Our planning reforms have opened up the opportunity to build. Now we must act to make the most of those opportunities. And a plan to match the scale of the housing crisis must include social housing. Neglected for too many decades, but not by this Labour government. And so, led by my right honourable friend, the Deputy Prime Minister, we are taking action. I am proud to announce the biggest cash injection into social and affordable housing in 50 years. A new affordable homes programme, in which I am investing £39 billion over the next decade. Direct government funding to support house building, especially for social rent. And I am pleased to report that towns and cities, including Blackpool, Preston, Sheffield and Swindon, have already had plans to bring forward bids to build those homes in their communities. Yeah. And I have gone further. Mr. Speaker, last autumn, I enabled greater use of financial transactions to support investments in our infrastructure, alongside strict guardrails that ensure that money is spent wisely through our public financial institutions. And so, in line with that commitment, I'm providing an additional £10 billion for financial investments, including to be delivered through Homes England, to crowd in private investment and unlock hundreds of thousands more homes. Homes built by a Labour government, homes built for working people. Yeah. But, Mr. Speaker, it is no good investing in new skills, new jobs and new homes if they are not properly connected. That is why last week, with the support of my right honourable friend, the Transport Secretary, I announced £15 billion of investment to connect our cities and our towns, the biggest ever investment of its kind. Investments in buses in Rochdale, train stations in Merseyside and Middlesbrough, mass transit in West Yorkshire, and metro extensions in Birmingham, in Tyne and Wear, and in Stockport. And alongside that, we are backing Doncaster Airport. Today, I'm announcing a 4-year settlement for Transport for London to provide certainty and stability for our largest local transport network to plan for the future. And for other regions in the UK, I am today providing for a fourfold increase in local transport grants by the end of this Parliament to make the improvements put off for far too long, to improve the journeys that people make every day. And to unlock the potential of all parts of Britain, we are going further, investing in major rail projects to connect our towns and cities. In October, I announced funding for the Transpennine route upgrade, the backbone of rail travel in the north, linking York and Leeds and Manchester, with a quarter of that route expected to be electrified by this summer. I know the commitment of my honourable friends, the members for Huddersfield, York Outer and Colne Valley to this issue. And today I can announce a further £3.5 billion of investment for that route. But my ambition and the ambition of people across the north is greater still. And so in the coming weeks, I will set out this government's plan to take forward our ambitions for Northern Powerhouse Rail. I have also heard the representations of my honourable friends, the members for Milton Keynes North, Milton Keynes Central and Buckingham and Bletchley. And I can tell the House today, to connect Oxford and Cambridge and to back Milton Keynes' leading tech sector, I am providing a further £2.5 billion for the continued delivery of East-West Rail. And on a matter I know is of great importance to my honourable friends, the members for Lichfield, Birmingham Northfield and Birmingham Erdington, I can announce today that I am providing funding for the Midlands Rail Hub, the region's biggest and most ambitious rail improvement scheme for generations, strengthening connections from Birmingham across the West Midlands and into Wales too. Mr. Speaker, for 14 years, the Conservatives failed the people of Wales. Those days are over. Following representations from my right honourable friend, the Welsh Secretary, the First Minister for Wales and Welsh Labour MPs, I am pleased to announce today £445 million for railways in Wales over 10 years, including new funding for Padeswood Sidings and Cardiff West Junction. That, Mr. Speaker, is the difference made by two Labour governments working together to undo a generation of underfunding and neglect. This government takes seriously its commitment to investment, jobs and growth in every part of the UK. And I have heard the concerns of my honourable friends, the members for Mid Cheshire and Rossendale and Darwen, and the Mayor of Liverpool City Region, Steve Rotherham, that past governments have underinvested in towns and cities outside of London and the South East. and they are right. So I am today publishing the conclusion of the review of the Treasury's Green Book, the government's manual for assessing value for money. Our new Green Book will support place-based business cases and make sure no region has Treasury guidance wielded against them. I said we would do things differently. I said we wanted growth in all parts of Britain. And Mr. Speaker, I meant it. Backing our nations and regions means backing our devolved governments. And this spending review provides the largest settlement in real terms since devolution was introduced, with £52 billion for Scotland, £20 billion for Northern Ireland by the end of the spending review, and £23 billion for Wales. And having heard representations from many Welsh Labour colleagues, and because I know the obligation we owe to our industrial communities, I'm providing a multi-year settlement of £118 million to keep coal tips safe in Wales. Mr. Speaker, I know the pride that people feel in their communities. I see it everywhere I go. But I also know that for too many people, there is a sense that something has been lost, as high streets have declined, as community spaces have closed, as jobs and opportunities have gone elsewhere. The renewal of Britain must be felt everywhere. Today, I'm pleased to announce additional funding to support up to 350 communities, especially those in the most deprived areas. Funding to improve parks, youth facilities, swimming pools and libraries. Supporting councils' fight back against graffiti and fly tipping, including in Blackpool South, in Stockport, in Stoke Central, in Swindon North, and in Newcastle upon Tyne East and Wallsend. And there's more. Job creation and community assets are vital to our growth mission. But too often, regeneration projects are held back, gathering dust in bureaucratic limbo. We are changing that. We will establish a growth mission fund to expedite local projects that are important for growth. Projects like Southport Pier, an iconic symbol of coastal heritage which has stood empty since 2022. Kilcody's seafront and high street, where investment would create jobs and new business opportunities. And plans for Peterborough's new sports quarter to drive activity and community cohesion. Because people deserve a government which shares their ambition for their communities. To deliver renewal, to deliver growth, to deliver opportunity. And that is what you get with a Labour government. If people are to feel pride in their community, enjoy their public spaces and spend time on their high streets, they must feel safe when they do so. Safe in the knowledge that when people break the law, they feel the full force of the law. But the party opposite left our prisons overflowing and on the brink of collapse. And they left it to us to deal with the consequences. We are taking the necessary action. So with my right honourable friend, the Justice Secretary, we have announced that we are investing £7 billion to fund 14,000 new prison places and putting up to £700 million per year into reform of the probation system too. Today, I will do more. I am increasing police spending power by an average 2.3% per year in real terms over the spending review period. To protect our people, our homes and our streets. That is more than £2 billion, supporting us to meet our plan for change commitment of putting 13,000 additional police officers, PCSOs and special constables into neighbour policing roles across England and Wales. And as well as every place, I am determined that every family feels the benefits of Britain's renewal. Falling interest rates, supported by our commitment to economic stability, are already saving many families hundreds of pounds a month on their mortgage. I have accepted pay review body recommendations for pay in our armed forces, for our nurses, our teachers and our prison officers, giving public sector workers the fair pay rises that they deserve. And in autumn, I increased the national living wage, a pay rise for around 3 million hard-working people. And this government is doing more. We're banning exploitative zero-hour contracts. We're strengthening statutory sick pay and ending the injustice of unscrupulous fire and rehire practices. Those are my choices. Those are Labour choices. Mr. Speaker, I know that for many people, the cost of living remains a constant challenge, which is why we are capping the cost of school uniforms. And I can tell the House today that I am extending the £3 bus fare cap until at least March 2027. Earlier this week, we announced that over 3/4 of pensioners will receive the winter fuel payment this year. And there is more. To get bills down, not just this winter, but in winters to come, we have expanded the Warm Homes Plan to support thousands more of the UK's poorest households, including providing £7 million to homes in Bradford, £11 million to homes in Rugby, and £30 million to homes in Blackpool. And today I can announce that I will deliver in full our manifesto commitment to upgrade millions of homes, saving families and pensioners across the country up to £600 each and every year off their bills. I am determined to do everything in my power to put more money in people's pockets, to give people security and control in their lives, to make working people better off, and to show them that this government, this Labour government, is on their side. Mr. Speaker, taxpayers work hard for their money, and they expect their government to spend their money with care. So for the first time in 18 years, this government has run a zero-based review, a line-by-line assessment of what government spends, something that the Tories didn't bother to do in 14 years. And as a result of that work and of our wider drive for efficiencies, led by my right honourable friend, the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, in this spending review, I have found savings. From the closure and sale of government buildings and land, cutting back office costs and reducing consultancy spend, all which the previous government failed to do. Reforms that will make public services more efficient, more productive and more focused on the user. I have been relentless in driving out inefficiencies. I will be relentless in cutting out waste, with every single penny reinvested back into our public services. Mr. Speaker, I joined the Labour Party almost 30 years ago because I knew that the Conservative Party, when I grew up, didn't care much about schools like mine or the kids I grew up with. I joined because I believe that every young person should have the equal chance to succeed, no matter where they come from, no matter what their parents do. I believe that just as strongly today as I did then. That is why I did the tax loophole, which exempted private schools from VAT and business rates. And I put that money where it belongs, into helping the 93% of children in our state schools. Mr. Speaker, they oppose money for their local state schools, and I will always prioritise them. That was my choice. That is the Labour choice. And because of the decisions that we made in this spending review, I'm working with my right honourable friend, the Education Secretary. Last week, this government announced that free school meals will be extended to over 500,000 more children. That policy alone will lift 100,000 children out of poverty. Children in schools from Tower Hamlets to Sunderland and from Swansea to Bridgend. Last year at Labour Party conference, I was proud to announce the first steps in our plan to deliver breakfast clubs for every child, with an initial rollout to the first 750 schools. And we will continue with that national rollout as part of our manifesto commitment, so that no child goes hungry and every child can have the best chance to thrive and succeed. Yeah. And because I know that a good start in life does not just start at school, I can also announce £370 million for school-based nurseries to put us firmly on track to meet our plan for change commitment, for for a record number of children being school ready. And for children's social care, to break the dangerous cycle of late intervention and low quality care, I am providing £555 million of transformation funding over the spending review period, so that children do not go needlessly into care when they could stay at home. And for children where state intervention is necessary, better care and better outcomes. And last week, I was pleased to announce, with my right honourable friend, the Culture Secretary, that more than £130 million from the Dormant Assets Scheme with the financial services sector will be allocated to fund facilities for our young people, to give every child the chance to take part in music, sport and in drama, to fund libraries in our schools, so that the confidence and the opportunity that those resources open up are no longer the preserve of the privileged few. Those are my choices. They are Labour choices, and they are the choices of the British people. Overall, I am providing a cash uplift of over £4.5 billion a year for additional funding in the core schools budget by the end of the spending review, backing our teachers and backing our kids. Mr. Speaker, people who went to ordinary comprehensives in the 80s and 90s are all too familiar with the experience of being taught in temporary classrooms. And the previous Conservative government oversaw another generation of kids herded into cold and damp buildings as school roofs literally crumbled. It wasn't acceptable when I was at school, and it isn't acceptable now. So I am providing investment rising to nearly £2.3 billion per year to fix our crumbling classrooms. In addition, £2.4 billion per year to continue our programme to rebuild 500 schools, including Chase Community School in Enfield, Woodkirk Academy in Leeds, and Budmouth Academy in Weymouth. Investing in our young people, investing in Britain's future, investing in opportunity for all. That is Labour's choice. Finally, Mr. Speaker, let me turn to the... I knew that, Chair. Let me turn to our National Health Service. It's our most treasured public service. People rightly expect an NHS that is there when they need it, an ambulance that comes when they call one, a GP appointment available when they need one, a scan that is performed when they are referred for one. I am hugely grateful to our nurses, our doctors, our paramedics, and other healthcare professionals for everything that they do. If we want a strong economy where working people can fulfil their potential, then we must have a strong NHS. Not as the Reform Party have called for, an insurance-based system. We believe in a publicly funded National Health Service free at the point of use. Now, perhaps the member for Clacton should spend some more time focusing on the priorities of the British people and less time in the Westminster Arms. Although, Mr. Speaker, after this week, perhaps the two chairman pub might be a better fit. At the budget, I took the decisions necessary to provide an immediate injection of funding to get the NHS back on its feet. And I commend my right honourable friend, the Health Secretary, for all the progress that he has already made. In less than a year, this government has recruited 1,700 new GPs, delivered 3.5 million extra appointments, and cut waiting lists by more than 200,000. Fixing our NHS also means delivering fundamental reform across social care, which means that we are backing the first ever fair pay agreement for that sector. And I am increasing the NHS technology budget by almost 50%. And we are investing £10 billion to bring our analogue health system into the digital age, including through the NHS app, so patients can manage their prescriptions, get their test results, and book appointments all in one place. We are shifting care back to the community, providing more funding to support the training of thousands more GPs to deliver millions more appointments. We are investing more in prevention to meet our manifesto commitment of providing mental health support teams in all schools in England by the end of this Parliament. These investments will enable the delivery of our upcoming 10-year plan for health and put the NHS firmly back on the path to renewal. And to support that plan, to back the doctors and nurses that we rely on, and to make sure that the NHS is there whenever we need it. I am proud to announce today that this Labour government is making a record cash investment in our National Health Service, increasing real terms day-to-day spending by 3% per year for every single year of this spending review. An extra £29 billion per year for the day-to-day running of our health service. Mr. Speaker, that is what the British people voted for, and that is what we will deliver. More appointments, more doctors, more scanners, the National Health Service, created by a Labour government, protected by a Labour government, and renewed by this Labour government. Mr. Speaker, this is a spending review to deliver the priorities of the British people. Security, a strong Britain in a changing world. Economic growth, powered by investment and opportunity in every part of Britain. And our nation's health, with an NHS fit for the future. I have made my choices. In place of chaos, I choose stability. In place of decline, I choose investments. In place of pessimism, division and defeatism, I choose national renewal. These are my choices, Mr. Speaker. These are Labour choices. These are the choices of the British people, and I commend this statement to the House.
Shudder Chancellor, Belstride. Mr. Speaker, this spending review is not worth the paper that it is written on. Because the Chancellor has completely lost control. This is the spend now, tax later review. Because the Right Honourable Lady knows she will need to come back here in the autumn with yet more taxes. And a cruel summer of speculation awaits. How can we possibly take this Chancellor seriously after the chaos of the last 12 months? We were assured, Mr. Speaker, we were assured at the election that Labour's plans involved barely any additional spending or borrowing. Now, the Chancellor parades her largesse. Hundreds of billions in additional spending over this Parliament. The initial profile for that spending was, of course, significantly front-loaded. But the Chancellor now expects us to believe that she will let spending rise by only 1.2% a year. There is no chance whatsoever of that happening. For the lesson of the last year has been that when the going gets tough, the Right Honourable Lady blinks. She presented herself as the Iron Chancellor, but what we have seen is the tin-foil Chancellor. Flimsy and ready to fold in the face of the slightest pressure. She said she would not fiddle her fiscal rules. Then she did. She said she wouldn't make any unfunded commitments, but with the humiliation of the winter fuel U-turn, she just has. She looked business leaders in the eye and said no more taxes. But we all know what happened next, and we all know what is coming in the autumn. Her own backbenchers, her cabinet colleagues, Labour's trade union paymasters, even the Prime Minister himself, they have all seen that she is weak, weak, weak. And they can smell the blood. They will be back for more, Mr. Speaker, and they will get it. These spending plans are a fantasy. And it's not the truth, Mr. Speaker, that the Chancellor has to maintain this fiction because she has left herself no room for manoeuvre. She is constantly teetering on the edge of blowing her fiscal rules, which she already changed to allow even more borrowing. And the only way she can claim to be meeting her rules is by pretending that she can control spending over the coming years. But, Mr. Speaker, let's look at the record so far. Borrowing in the last financial year came out 11 billion above even the OBR's March forecast, and 70% higher than the plans that she inherited from this side of the House.
Tax up, borrowing up.
But for someone so keen on borrowing, Mr. Speaker, the Chancellor seems strangely reticent to even use the word. Indeed, ministers bizarrely tell us that it is Labour's fiscal rules themselves that have, quote, generated investment. The reality is a little more straightforward. They have loosened the fiscal rules so they can borrow more. Borrow and borrow and borrow, allowing the national debt to continue to rise higher every single year while ministers pretend that it is not. An eye-watering £200 billion of additional borrowing in this Parliament compared to the plans set out in the last Conservative budget, with 80 billion more to be spent on debt interest alone. In fact, if she had retained our fiscal rules, as she said, they may laugh, Mr. Speaker. If she had retained our fiscal rules, as she said she would before the election, the OBR have confirmed that she would be breaking them right now. Mr. Speaker, our country is now vulnerable to even the smallest changes in the bond markets. Should we face a sudden external shock, we have no fiscal firepower left with which to respond, all thanks to the Right Honourable Lady's choices. So can I ask the Chancellor, will she be open about what she has done? Will she admit that she has made a conscious choice to borrow more and to accept higher debts? Does she accept this means interest rates and mortgages will be higher than they would otherwise have been, as the OBR themselves have said? And given she continues to claim that she has brought stability to the public finances, can I ask her what on earth her definition of stability is? And, Mr. Speaker, the Chancellor must be delighted that she does not have to face a new OBR forecast today. Because if she did, she would have to set out how she will fund her humiliating U-turn on winter fuel payments, having already blown the savings on buying off her trade union paymasters last year. She said this week there was, and I quote, she said, still work to do to ensure that the sums add up. Hardly reassuring from the person in charge of the nation's finances, Mr. Speaker. You don't need to have worked at the Bank of England for a decade to know that that pitiful utterance is unlikely to soothe the markets. So can the Chancellor confirm categorically that there will be no additional borrowing to pay for this chaotic reversal? And if this is the case, can she explain how on earth it can be paid for without raising taxes? And can the Right Honourable Lady explain why last summer, apparently to avoid a run on the pound, Mr. Speaker, this measure was so urgent that pensioners had to be left in the cold over the last winter? What exactly has changed? Because it certainly hasn't been made possible by an improvement in the economy or the public finances, which the IFS said this week are both in a worse state now than when Labour came into office. And if we had an OBR forecast, we might also get some answers on how the government intends to find £3.5 billion to abolish the two-child benefit cap, which we are led to believe is imminent. Another addition to the ballooning welfare bill, another expensive surrender to the Labour left. And we would certainly get the OBR's assessment of the economic outlook following the tariffs, changes the Right Honourable Lady knew full well were coming. Meanwhile, her deluge of taxes and regulations has left business confidence at record lows, costing people their livelihoods. Only yesterday, Mr. Speaker, we saw the latest evidence of that. Figures for last month show the number of people on payrolls fell by more than 100,000 after already falling by 55,000 in April. Unemployment is up by more than 10% since Labour came to office. The Right Honourable Lady made trumpet extra spending today, but is not the simple truth that she has trashed the economy and left no contingency in the face of a highly volatile global outlook. It's not the reality, Mr. Speaker, that the Chancellor knows she will have to come back in the autumn with more tax rises to fund these plans? Or can she assure us right now that this is not the case? Yes or no? We know that the Deputy Prime Minister has helpfully provided her with an entire brochure of tax rises that she will no doubt be perusing over the summer. The Corbynist catalogue, Mr. Speaker. And can the Chancellor confirm, as promised, can she confirm as promised, that the income tax thresholds will not be frozen at the budget, a move she herself said would hurt working people? And Mr. Speaker, what about the uncertainties in the departmental spending plan she has just set out today? Can she assure us that these plans will not be topped up, that no backroom deals have been cut with disgruntled cabinet ministers? Can she assure us that the capital allocations announced today will actually be spent on capital, not diverted in year as she has in the past to day-to-day budgets to play more games with her fiscal rules? The Chancellor has had to impose a settlement on the Home Secretary because this spending review won't deliver for our hard-working police officers across the country. Instead, the Home Office budget gets squandered on asylum costs because this government simply doesn't have a plan on illegal migration. And as the Defence Secretary admitted, and I quote, the government has lost control of our borders. Small boat crossings, Mr. Speaker, are up 42% on the same point last year. On energy, at a time when businesses up and down the country are struggling with high energy costs, the Chancellor has chosen today to fund the energy sector's vanity projects like GB Energy.
Where is he?
And while we welcome the announcements on expanding nuclear capacity, the scale of ambition is a downgrade on the commitments made previously on this side of the House. Mr. Speaker, the party opposite barely mentioned farming in their manifesto. And now we know why. It's not enough to have hit the farmers in our country with a family farm tax. Today, what we see in black and white is a choice to make further cuts to the vital grants on which many farmers rely. A huge betrayal of our farming communities, and something which many of her MPs in rural areas will have to go back to their constituencies later this week to explain. And on defence, we will always welcome any additional investment in our armed forces and capability.
But there isn't.
Though I note, Madam Deputy Speaker, nothing was said about when 3% will be achieved.
No squeak.
All we heard was that in the intelligence service spending was to be included in defence spending to flatter the numbers. We left the party opposite a fully funded plan, which they didn't over for a year. But now, what we get is the Chancellor's own black hole on defence spending, the lack of a timeline on when we will achieve the 3%. Instead, we get a £30 billion bill for the Chagos surrender. money which should go to our brave armed forces, rather than is being reported funding lower taxation in Mauritius. The first tax cuts for which this Chancellor has ever been responsible are in Mauritius. Mr. Speaker, we would have made different choices. We would not have killed growth with huge tax rises and new regulations. We would not have taught down our economy and the great businesses up and down our country. We would be focusing on efficiency and productivity in the public sector and not handing out pay rises with no strings attached. And we would be getting a grip on welfare. Labour cancelled our plans for fundamental reform to health and disability benefits that would have seen 450,000 fewer people on long-term sickness benefits. That is a disgrace. And instead of proper reforms to PIP, their own plans are a rushed cost-cutting exercise. So rushed, they even had to change them after they had announced them. And their own backbenchers are in full revolt. Yet again, they talk tough, but there is no substance. The Right Honourable Lady has no grip. She has no clue. The markets and the public see a Chancellor completely out of her depth. Having blown her headroom and more from her budget in the autumn, she was forced into an emergency budget in March to scrabble around to try and repair the damage. Today, she comes before us again with yet another fantastical tale that she knows will have completely fallen apart come the autumn. So we are not left with stronger foundations, as the Right Honourable Lady would have us believe, but rather another dose of that hallmark for which her actions have made her so renowned: uncertainty and failure. And so there she sits, Mr. Speaker, powerless to resist her disillusioned MPs and her panicking Prime Minister. Like a cork on the tide, the drumbeat for U-turns pounding in her ears. Yet her tone today suggests that all is well. The sunlit uplands await. What a hopeless conceit, a masterclass in delusion. Inflation is up, unemployment is up, growth is marked down, business and households are hurting, investors are fleeing in their droves. The bond market vigilantes circle. And here we have the Chancellor who refuses to listen. Not only tinfoil, but tin-eared too. And let me be clear, Mr. Speaker, it is working people and businesses who will pay the price come the autumn, with yet more taxes to pay for her weakness and her failures. Mr. Speaker, we cannot afford this spending review. And for many, the growing conclusion is that we cannot afford this Chancellor.
Chancellor the Exchequer. I will address the Shadow Chancellor's specific points in a moment, but I want to start by acknowledging the progress he has made. After all, Madam Deputy Speaker, it's been quite a week for him. Last Thursday, he gave a speech saying it will take time for his party to win back trust on the economy. And today he showed us how far he and his party have to go to be able to achieve that. Now, I want to give him some credit for last week's analysis. He said that the Conservative Party was seen to have failed. He's right. He said that the last Conservative government put at risk the very stability which Conservatives had always said must be carefully protected. Madam Deputy Speaker, I agree with him. And he said that on his party's...
Chancellor, I need to be able to hear, and I'm sure our constituents would also want to hear. Chancellor.
He said that the credibility of the UK's economic framework was undermined by spending billions with no proper plan for how it would be paid for. Mr. Speaker, I couldn't have put it better myself. Now, the Shadow Chancellor could have gone a lot further. For example, Madam Deputy Speaker, he couldn't even bring himself to mention Liz Truss by name, strides by name, baby steps by nature. But at least he's made a start. also spoke about, and I quote, the death of what we might call the age of thoughtfulness. And speaking of the death of thoughtfulness, let me now turn to his response to the spending review. Now, the Shadow Chancellor welcomed our nuclear investment of £30 billion, but he said it's not enough. He welcomed our defence investment of £11 billion, but he said it was not enough. He and his party opposed the decisions that this government has taken to make those announcements possible by voting against the budget in October last year. Madam Deputy Speaker, you can't spend the money if you won't raise the money. Now that's a lesson from Liz Truss that he has already forgotten. He complains about the level of investment that I've announced, ignoring the fact that the reason this investment is so important is because his party oversaw 14 years of cratering investment, stagnating wages and public service collapse. So let me remind him of what I said, Mr. Speaker, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Tories' fiscal rules guaranteed neither stability nor investment, and that is why I changed them, so that we can get stability and we can get investment. All their fiscal rules enabled was them to crash the economy, and the working people of Britain will never forgive them for doing that. So the party opposite set themselves against investment in the renewal of Britain. They set themselves against NHS investment, free school meals, investment in skills, investment in carbon capture and storage, investment in transport in our towns and in our cities, investment in everything that we've set out today. And yet the British people voted for them. And the honourable gentleman says, the right honourable gentleman says that the Home Office budget involves an increase in asylum costs. It doesn't. Asylum costs are coming down under this Labour government because we are deporting more people and getting them out of hotels. He says that we're cutting police spending, we're increasing it by 2.3% in real terms a year. And Madam Deputy Speaker, we've had no apology. No apology for the damage that they did to our economy or to our public services. In the last 11 months, interest rates have been cut 4 times. GDP was the fastest growing of all G7 economies in the first quarter of this year. Business confidence is rising. 500,000 more people are in work. Record investment has been made in Britain. Real wages have increased more in 10 months than they did in 10 years of the Conservative government. The national living wage has increased, giving 3 million working people a pay rise. And we've done all of this without increasing taxes on working people. Those are the choices that we have made. That is the difference that we are making. And in the spending review today, we set out the spending that we announced in the budget last year and in the spring statement. Not a penny more, not a penny less. I said in the budget and in the spring statement that public services must now live within the means that we have set, and we have achieved that. There will be a budget later this year, and in that budget we will set out in the round all of the fiscal plans. But we have already drawn a line under the Tory mismanagement with tax rises last year, and we will never have to repeat a budget like that again, because we will never have to clean up after the mess that the party opposite made again. Now, the reason that this Labour government has spent its first year fixing the foundations of our economy and stabilising our public finances is because it is what we had to do. The government of which the Shadow Chancellor was a part of left an unenviable legacy, which is why his party is, in his own words, in a difficult place. Now, we've made our choices. Removing barriers to growth, barriers untouched by the party when they were in office for 14 years. Strengthening Britain's security, the biggest real terms increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War, something that they did not do when they had 14 years in office. Bringing our health service in the 21st century after neglect by the party opposite in their 15 years in office. Investing in Britain's renewal to repair the damage done by the party opposite in their 14 years in office. And Madam Deputy Speaker, in stark contrast to the Conservatives' 14 years of chaos, waste and decline, we are delivering on the priorities of the British people.
Chair of the Select Committee, Dame Meg Hillier.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I congratulate my right honourable friend for delivering this spending review, the first zero-based review in a very long time. And I think it's absolutely vital that as the taxpayer, the citizen, are looking very carefully at their spending in the cost of living crisis, that government does that too. And we look forward to having the Chief Secretary for the Treasury in front of the Select Committee in 2 weeks' time to look at this in more detail. I particularly noticed from the figures that she has made a good fist of ensuring that government departments have more than under the Conservatives in very many cases. And I very much welcome her work on delivering on child poverty and tackling that scourge on our society. I do note, however, in the brief glimpse I've had at the figures, that for the Department of Housing, Communities and Local Government, there is a smaller increase than there would have been. And there is this £39 billion over a decade for affordable social housing. Those children living in poverty also have the poverty of situation in many cases. So could she expand on how she's going to see that money with her, the Deputy Prime Minister, delivered to provide that social housing that so many of those children in poverty desperately need?
Chancellor.
I thank my right honourable friend for that question, and I appreciate her welcoming the breakfast clubs, the free school meals, also the capping in school uniform costs to help families living in poverty, and the free school meals, as my honourable friend knows, will lift 100,000 children out of poverty. She mentions the social affordable homes grant. The affordable homes grant is going to have its biggest ever increase, and we've set that budget for 10 years to give certainty to the sector so they understand what is available. And in addition, we have set out some social rent changes to give certainty to the sector to invest for the future.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Daisy Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's been almost a year since Labour swept to power with the promise of change, but we are still not seeing the scale of ambition needed to turn the country around. We welcome the announcement of investment in the NHS, but on its own, it won't work unless the government invests in social care too. We welcome the investment in infrastructure, but on its own, it won't work unless the government invests in skilling up the workforce we need to build it. And cutting billions from departmental budgets in real terms seems unnecessary when the government could instead go for growth and get a much deeper trading relationship with Europe, a move which could raise an extra £25 billion per year for the public purse. For as long as the government fails to truly tackle the red tape and trading barriers blocking British businesses, the government's grip on economic growth is more akin to a handbrake than an accelerator. Madam Deputy Speaker, the last Conservative government left our NHS on its knees. On their watch, waiting lists were soaring, hospitals were crumbling, and our high street healthcare was hollowed out. Can the Chancellor confirm that this funding will deliver the extra 8,000 GPs that are needed to guarantee everyone an appointment within 7 days or 24 hours if urgent? Can the Chancellor confirm that this funding will bring dentists back into the NHS and put an end to dental deserts? Can the Chancellor promise that this funding will mean that every cancer patient starts treatment within 62 days? And will she promise that the government will meet the Prime Minister's own pledge that 92% of routine operations will take place within 18 weeks? Will the Chancellor and the Health Secretary, sitting side by side, set up a crumbling hospitals task force to look at creative funding ideas, to bring construction dates forward and put an end to the vicious cycle that we saw under the previous government, and false economies of delayed rebuilds leading to rising repair costs? And then, of course, Madam Deputy Speaker, there is the elephant in the NHS waiting room: the crisis in our social care services. The Chancellor knows. The Health and Social Care Secretary knows. This whole Parliament knows that today's investment in the NHS will be like pouring water into a leaky bucket if hospitals cannot discharge patients who are well enough to leave because there aren't the care workers to help them recover at home.
Absolutely right.
This fair pay agreement that the Chancellor talks about, of course, is welcome, but it is barely a baby step, and it is nowhere near enough to bring back social care from the brink. At a bare minimum, we need a higher minimum wage for our care workers to stop the sector hemorrhaging care workers to other sectors. So when will the Chancellor finally recognise that we will never fix the NHS if we don't fix social care too? And will the government finally act with urgency and commit to concluding the social care review by the end of this year, not in 3 years' time? On housing, we warmly welcome the government's investment in social homes. Will the government now commit to the Liberal Democrats' target of building 150,000 social homes every single year? Madam Deputy Speaker, other public services are crying out for investment too. Our communities need proper neighbourhood policing to feel safe. Our farmers need fair support payments to keep food on our tables. And people of all ages deserve access to training and skills to build their future and to help power our economy forward. That's why it's so disappointing that the Chancellor has today made things so difficult for some of our public services, cutting unprotected budgets by billions. Yes, we know she was faced with the fallout from the most reckless and the most out-of-touch Conservative government in recent memory. But being responsible is not just about taking tough decisions. It's about having the moral courage to make the right ones. That could put rocket boosters on our economy and raise billions for our public services. A proper trade deal with Europe. A new bespoke customs union with the EU could boost our GDP by more than 2.2%, securing additional revenue to the tune of 25 billion a year, a huge boost to businesses and to our struggling public services too. If the Chancellor can U-turn on the winter fuel payment, thanks to a skinny EU trade pact worth just 0.2% in extra GDP. Just imagine how many more U-turns she could perform with a proper trade deal worth 10 times as much. Madam Deputy Speaker, we Liberal Democrats strongly support the allocation of 2.5% of GDP on defence, but we want to see ministers go further and faster to bolster our national security in today's uncertain world. Will the Chancellor agree to cross-party talks in which we can work together to set a pathway to 3% of GDP well ahead of 2034? Will the government use some of today's investment to reverse the Conservatives' irresponsible 10,000 troop cut? And will the Chancellor make sure that investing in our national security becomes a lever for economic growth, putting a much greater emphasis on British steel producers and SMEs as we scale up our defences? And will the Chancellor ensure that British startups can use defence innovation for the public good? Before I conclude, Madam Deputy Speaker, I must thank the Chancellor for finally completing the world's slowest U-turn on the unfair winter fuel payment cut. Now that the Chancellor has U-turned, will she do the right thing and backdate the payment for all those who lost out on support this past winter, but who would now be eligible under the new rules? And now the Chancellor has U-turned once, will she make it a hat-trick and also change course on PIP and carers allowance cuts as well? Perhaps the Chancellor might even look again at the growth-crushing jobs tax and other changes affecting our high streets, small businesses and family businesses, and instead look at the fairer ways of raising revenue that we Liberal Democrats have set out time and time again, raising the same amount of revenue from the big banks, the social media giants and the online gambling companies to start paying their fair share of tax. Madam Deputy Speaker, after years of chaos and incompetence under the last Conservative government, this was a unique opportunity to draw a line under the social care crisis, squeezed budgets and sluggish economic growth. So I strongly urge the Chancellor, will she ignore those who talk down Britain's economic potential? Will she rip up the red tape holding British businesses back? And will she strike a properly ambitious trade deal with Europe that will turbocharge our economy and bring in the billions to rebuild our public services? The government says its #1 mission is growth. This would be the way to deliver it.
Chancellor.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Honourable Lady for her comments. I know she hasn't had a chance to look at the figures yet, but it's not right to say that there are real terms cuts to public services. Public service spending is increasing by 2.3% a year on average over the course of the spending review. If we start on investment in the NHS and in social care, we've already delivered, as I set out in my speech, 1,500 more GPs. We've put £26 billion already in the first phase of the spending review into the NHS. I just note that compares to the £8 billion of money you said you were going to, the Liberal Democrats said they were going to put into the NHS in their manifesto. We've already put £26 billion in, and we've put more money in today in every year of this Parliament. The new hospital programme is being rolled out, and the Health Secretary met, I think, just last week with members of Parliament who are having hospital improvements in their local communities, including with many Liberal Democrat MPs. So she should be aware that we are making improvements to the fabric of our hospitals, as well as investing in technology and scanners, etc., to improve productivity in our health service. With regards to social care, we are, as the Honourable Lady knows, we are introducing the fair pay agreement in social care. That's something that the Health Secretary and my right honourable friend, the Deputy Prime Minister, are very much committed to. We've increased, as she'll know when she looks at the documents, local government spending power so we can put more money into social care. And in addition, Louise Casey is doing her review into the future of social care. On investment in infrastructure, yes, we are going big on infrastructure. £100 billion more announced in the budget last year, another £13 billion in the spring statement, and we're backing that up with skills, as I set out in my speech and as detailed in the spending review documents. Biggest ever investment in young people's skills so that they can access the new jobs that are being created in defence, in house building, in other infrastructure too. On the issue of red tape and backing business. I mean, I just think it's a little bit ironic, Madam Deputy Speaker, when they voted against the planning and infrastructure bill yesterday, that they come to the House today saying they want to do away with red tape and go for growth. Well, we want to go for growth. That's why we took that legislation through Parliament, and perhaps she'll ask her Lords in the to vote for growth in the other place. On trade deals, we've done a trade deal with the US, with India, and with the EU. I think that the Liberal Democrats opposed the trade deal with the US, but now apparently they think that trade deals are the way to go. Well, so do we. That's why my right honourable friend, the Business and Trade Secretary, has got 3 of them that are helping our automotive sector, our steel sector, and our farming communities. On defence, yes, we will use defence spending to support growth. The Defence Secretary and I have been very clear about that, and as I set out in the speech, making Britain a defence industrial superpower. But I would just sort of say, gently to the Liberal Democrats and the Honourable Lady, if you want to support investment in public services, you've got to increase the tax rises to get there. And so they voted against the national insurance increase, which is what has enabled us to make the investments that I've set out today. Now, the Honourable Lady says she wants a wealth tax. Well, we changed inheritance tax. We changed inheritance tax, and the Liberal Democrats voted against it. We introduced VAT on private schools. The Liberal Democrats voted against it. So either they are serious about investing in public services, in which case they need to back the tax increases, or they want to go down the route of the magic money tree party opposite, where they're just going to borrow more to pay for things. And on the winter fuel allowance, we've made our choices clear. We're going to keep the means test, but it will be paid to people with a pension less than £35,000. I think the Liberal Democrats want to make it a universal benefit again. Oh, OK, that's just the Tories. Well, they need to explain how they would pay for it. So, look, I appreciate the fact that she welcomes some of our policies, but I would just say that the job of Chancellor and the job of government is to make sure that the sums add up. And we made difficult decisions last October, but I stand by those difficult decisions, because without them, today we would not have been able to make the investments we've made in schools, in energy, and in our health service. I'm proud of what we've achieved as a government. I'm proud of the investment that we're putting in today.
Bill Esterson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Warm Homes Plan will mean healthier homes, it will mean warmer homes, it will see lower bills, and it will create jobs in communities right across the country. It is a very good plan, especially for those facing fuel poverty. The last government's home energy programme changed every few months, which meant that businesses couldn't plan and consumers had no confidence in it, not to mention the scandalous misapplication of fixed wall insulation. So will my right honourable friend confirm that this is a long-term warm homes plan that will deliver warmer homes and cut bills to the benefit of millions of our constituents for years to come?
I thank the chair of the Select Committee for that intervention. Warm homes is a big part of our plan to tackle the cost of living crisis. And the money that we've put into the Warm Homes Plan today will mean millions more homes being able to be retrofitted with better boilers, with insulation, with solar panels. And that on average takes £600 a year of people's bills, not just for 1 year, but for every year to come. And my honourable friend is absolutely right that what we've done today is set out a 5-year package of capital investment, because it is crucial that the industry is able to plan for the future, and young people are therefore willing to train up, and businesses are willing to invest in apprenticeships. And so that's why on all of our capital spending, including the Warm Homes Plan, we've set out a 5-year plan.
Dame Harriet Baldwin.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And my constituents in Tenbury Wells, where they're seeking funding for the flood defence scheme, will have listened very closely to the Chancellor's remarks today to hear her mention flood defence capital spending, and yet it wasn't mentioned in her speech. So can she confirm that the capital that will be allocated in this spending review period to flood defences is going to be as high in real terms as it was in the previous Parliament?
Chancellor.
Well, the right honourable lady knows that we increased money for flood defences in the spending review in autumn last year because we knew that there was no time to waste. So we have already increased that flood defence spending in addition to what the previous government was spending.
Liam Byrne.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This spending review is good for business. It's good for Britain's business because it invests in the things that British business need. It invests in skills, in infrastructure, in innovation, it cuts red tape and it supports small firms. But can the Chancellor just clarify that this spending review will also now open a new era of energy abundance for our country? The Business Committee heard directly from the IMF in Washington yesterday that high energy costs are now holding back growth. That is a consequence of the dither and the delay from the party opposite that left us with the highest industrial energy costs in Europe. Will she now confirm for the House that we are now consigning that era to our history?
Chancellor.
I thank my right honourable friend for his question, and he's right, we're backing innovation, backing skills, backing infrastructure because we are backing British business. And we're also cutting red tape, as we did yesterday when we took the planning and infrastructure bill through the House, making it easier to get things built in Britain again. And as we make the investments, we want those jobs to come here to Britain, including in the energy sector, whether that is investment in small modular reactors, in Sizewell C, in carbon capture and storage, or indeed floating offshore wind. And we'll be setting out in the next couple of weeks the industrial strategy, where we'll have more to say about energy costs for business.
Gavin Robinson.
Madam Deputy Speaker, can I thank the Chancellor for engaging productively in the discussions around sustainable budgets for Northern Ireland, the willingness to negotiate further and the recognition that our need levels should be met. So I thank her for that engagement. Can I also thank her too for the allocations to Northern Ireland for specific community projects that have been advanced by us. Can I just say to her that she has chosen through this allocation to make a budget available for the redevelopment of Casement Park. She will know about the political nature of some of the concerns around that, and that in all previous agreements in the executive, these things have been advanced in a balanced and a non-partisan way. This government has chosen to step into this issue in an unbalanced and a partisan way. And so what I wish to ask the Chancellor is that in making financial transactions capital available, or £50 million over the course of the next spending period, will she ensure that when there is a need, and there is, for investment in football to return to the Executive's agreement of 2011 in a balanced and non-partisan way, that she will not be found wanting?
I thank the honourable gentleman for his question and the way in which he put it. I was pleased to be able to announce in the spending review today the settlement for Northern Ireland, but also money through MHCLG as well. He mentions Casement Park, and we have put £50 million in this spending review. I will arrange for a meeting for the honourable gentleman with either the Northern Ireland Secretary or a minister from my department to talk through what he wants to see.
Helen Hayes.
Madam Deputy Speaker, can I welcome the focus my right honourable friend the Chancellor has placed on children and young people in this spending review, with additional investment in children's social care, schools and skills. These announcements show the government's commitment to improving the life chances of every child, and my committee looks forward to scrutinising the detail in the coming weeks. The Chancellor will know that universities are the life force of many local economies, generating jobs, improving skills and boosting life chances. Yet a number of our universities are at the brink of insolvency, and the sector has been calling for a transformation fund to help universities reform and secure a sustainable future. So can the Chancellor confirm that she will work with Cabinet colleagues to ensure that no town or city has to face the calamity of a university going bust?
Chancellor.
I thank the Chair of the Select Committee, my honourable friend, for that question, and appreciate her welcoming the investment in children's social care, in skills and in schools, an issue that she knows and cares passionately about. In the spending review, we were able to set out £86 billion in total of investment in R&D, much of that spent through our universities and our research institutes. But I'm certain that the Education Secretary or the relevant minister would meet with her to talk about the wider allocation from this spending review.
John Glenn.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Scientists at Porton Down at the UK Health Security Agency make a massive contribution to the welfare of our country in difficult times. 10 years ago, the Chancellor's predecessor wanted to invest £525 million, moving to a single science hub in Harlow. £400 million has already been spent. And the NAO last year said it would cost £3.2 billion to complete the move by 2036. 3 weeks ago, I had an adjournment debate, and I was told that today we would know the outcome of what was actually going to happen with this project. Could I ask the Chancellor what is happening with the future of UK HSA at Porton Down? Is it going to move to Harlow at massive expense, 6 times the original estimate, 15 years later than was estimated? Or can we save some money and use that money for better investment in our public estate?
Chancellor.
I thank the right honourable gentleman, a member of the Treasury Select Committee, for his question. We've made the allocation to the Department of Health, £29 billion annual uplift, and it will be up to the Secretary of State to allocate that money. But I will make sure that he's heard your question and gets a proper reply to you.
Louise Jones.
Very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. With £2.5 billion investment into nuclear in Derby, £2.5 billion into nuclear fusion in North Nottinghamshire, and £500 million into steel suitable for use in the nuclear industry in Sheffield. I note that my constituency of North East Derbyshire is surrounded by wonderful opportunities in these industries of the future. Can the Chancellor outline what more we can do to support young people in my constituency to access careers in this industry?
Chancellor.
Thank my honourable friend for that question. But we were proud as a government to be able to step in and save British Steel at Scunthorpe, and I thank again my honourable friend, the member for Scunthorpe. But it's not just Scunthorpe, also opportunities in Sheffield and at Port Talbot, because as we build this infrastructure, whether it's trams and trains or nuclear power or submarines, we want to use steel made in Britain. And that's a really exciting opportunity. And the investments that we're putting in small modular reactors and fusion in Nottinghamshire and Derby create great opportunities for jobs. And that's why we're also in this spending review putting record investment in skills so that young people in North East Derbyshire and beyond can get access to the jobs being created.
Liz Saville-Roberts.
The announcement of just £44.5 million a year for the next 10 years for Welsh Rail is Labour's flimsy fig leaf of an excuse for the multi-billion and multi-decade scandal that is HS2. The money announced today is only significant if it matches what Wales will continue to lose from all England-only rail projects up to now and in future. So can the Chancellor guarantee that Wales will, from now on, receive the full £4 billion HS2 consequential funding, or will she admit that her announcement on Welsh rail funding is nothing but smoke and mirrors?
Chancellor.
Two things say that £445 million isn't real money. That's going to invest in those Burns Review stations. And in addition, we are putting £118 million to make the coal tip safe. Well, maybe she's not that concerned about that, but I know plenty of Welsh Labour MPs are.
Matthew Patrick.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I wonder if the Chancellor can help me, because I want to write a letter to my constituents in Wirral West, and I don't know which story I should lead with. Whether it should be the record investment in our NHS to get more doctors' appointments, the money for our police to get more police on the streets, whether it should be the transport investment to get new train stations, or the money to give hungry children in my constituency free school meals. Could she help me out? I've only got one page. What should I start with?
Well, you want to have that bit on the leaflet to remind them that you were lobbying for all of these things, so you can take the thanks.
Dave Dugan.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
I welcome the U-turn on the winter fuel payment. Of course, I do, and lots of my constituents will do likewise, but there's no respite in this spending review for the farmers in Scotland, the business owners in Scotland, the GP surgeries or the disabled in hospices in Scotland. And there's a real terms cut, despite what she says, to the Home Office, Foreign Office and local government in this spending review. Now, the Chancellor's an open book, Madam Deputy Speaker. She plays roulette with the economy, but I wouldn't encourage her to play poker anytime soon, because she mentioned reform and the Honourable Member for Clacton more times in her speech than she mentioned Scotland. What a disgrace. So what funding, she mentioned she's finally got round to ACON. What funding is she going to allocate for ACON? Because she mentioned it without a figure attached. Now, we know that if it's Merseyside or Teesside, there's 22 billion for them. How much for ACON?
Chancellor.
Well, I did mention the SNP. I questioned why the SNP don't support defence investments in Scotland. But I can mention the SNP again if you'd like to. Why have the SNP let down the people of Scotland with rising hospital waiting lists? Why have the SNP let down people in Scotland with more drugs deaths? Why have the people of the SNP let down people time and time again? We are putting money into ACON, we are putting money into a defence investment, and we are giving a record settlement to the SNP government, but hopefully they won't be there for much longer.
Session early.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I thank my right honourable friend, the Chancellor, for prioritising affordable housing today. This extra investment is going to go a long way to the overdue, spiralling, broken housing system, which has pushed so many people into poverty. Last year, we saw a record 126,000 households facing homelessness and an increase of over 17,000 in 1 year alone. We see so many families placed in what we call temporary accommodation, which isn't temporary, because 5 years plus more is far from temporary. Children travelling hours to get to schools, families not having a space to grow up, and we've lost a decade of building social homes that we need. So I join with the likes of Shelter, the National Housing Federation, in welcoming investment in affordable housing and the certainty of a 10-year rent settlement. But these measures need more. And we need to build the truly social homes. So can the Chancellor confirm what proportion of social rent will form the backbone of this affordable homes programme to get those families into a safe and secure, stable home?
Chancellor.
Well, I thank my honourable friend for her campaigning on these issues of housing and homelessness, which is a big challenge in many of our constituencies, including hers in Vauxhall. We now want to work closely with local councils and also the Mayor of London to build the affordable homes that we desperately need in the capital city, where house prices and rents are still far too high for so many families. And I look forward to working with my honourable friend on just that.
Sir Geoffrey Clifton-Brown.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The billions of pounds that have been announced today by the Chancellor are very big rises. The PAC looks forward to scrutinising that expenditure, because I'm sure it'll be welcomed by those who receive it, to make sure we're getting value for money. However, could the Chancellor explain to the House how it's going to be funded? Because debt is at a record level, tax is at a record level, or is it the case that British workers can look forward to a summer expecting more tax increases?
Chancellor.
Well, I look forward to that scrutiny, but the honourable gentleman will know that the allocations we've made today is based on the tax increases that we made in the budget last year. So we're not spending a single penny more or a single penny less than the money that we set out in the autumn budget and the spring statement.
Ruth Cadbury.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome the significant transport investment that the Chancellor has announced today in the north and in the city regions. This is helped through her changes to the Green Book. But when will the place-based business cases be reviewed so that these local areas can start planning for that local transport initiatives that they've so long waited for?
Chancellor.
Well, I hope that my honourable friend can already see the impact of our change attitude and our change perspective at the Treasury by putting this record investment, £15.6 billion that we announced last week, into 8 mayoral combined authorities to better connect towns and cities. And because of the changes we've made, it is why we've been able today to put more money into the Trans-Pennine route upgrade, the Midlands hub, and indeed significant investment in trains in Wales.
Tim Farron.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My communities in Westland will be outraged by a 17% reduction in farm funding, and we will be perplexed and are perplexed because we were told to expect today a decision on the vital scheme to dual the A66 from Penrith to Scotch Corner, which is crucial to east-west connectivity, the northern economy, and to saving lives. There was no mention in the statement or in the accompanying documents at all. Will she confirm now that the A66 upgrade will take place?
Chancellor.
I thank the right honourable gentleman for that question. The allocation has now been made to the Department for Transport. We haven't set out every project that's going to fund today, and I'm sure that the Transport Secretary will come to this House or the relevant Select Committee in due course.
Graham Downey.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I thank the Chancellor of the Exchequer, in particular putting her faith in young people for the future with investments in AI, nuclear and defence, opportunities which young people in Scotland deserve, alongside £1.2 billion for training and apprenticeships. Meanwhile, in my own constituency, Fife College has recently warned of course cuts and campus closures thanks to the mismanagement of the Scottish budget by the SNP. Does she agree with me that the best way to get opportunities that young people deserve in defence, nuclear and other industries is with a Scottish Labour government and Anas Sarwar as First Minister?
Well, I think we saw in the by-election last week how desperate the people of Scotland are for change after 2 decades of SNP so-called leadership. We are putting investments in training and apprenticeships in this spending review, and I very much hope the SNP will match that in Scotland.
Richard Tice.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Well, the Chancellor inherited supposedly a black hole, and she's dug a crater into which public confidence is plunging. Business confidence is plunging. And the truth is, jobs, 250,000 jobs are disappearing since the blunder budget. And despite all the noise we hear from the benches opposite, the reality is that government spending is completely out of control. Inflation is up, government borrowing is up, and the cost of government borrowing is up. And the only thing that's going down are jobs and GDP. But I have some good news for the Chancellor. In the 10 councils that we control, Madam Deputy Speaker, that we control, we're already identifying savings of hundreds of millions of pounds. She may want to learn some lessons. That, Madam Deputy Speaker, is why reform is leading in the polls.
Chancellor.
Well, I noted recently on a podcast that the honourable member said that he wanted to cut government spending by £300 billion. Well, that would mean getting rid of the whole of the NHS and the whole of the defence budget. We have increased spending by £300 billion to invest in our schools, our hospitals, our transport and our defence. I know that the party on those benches is soft on defence, soft on workers' rights, and want to privatise our NHS. I don't think that is the priorities of the British people.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I may say reforms economic policies appear to have been cooked up after a heavy night at most bars in The Simpsons. 18 years of the SNP. They have failed to invest in Glasgow's transport infrastructure. We have no airport rail link, no Parkhead station. We don't even have lifts at Bridgeton Station. And I contrast this, Madam Deputy Speaker, with the right honourable friend, the Chancellor of the Exchequer's firm commitment to transport. Does my right honourable friend agree with me that 50 billion extra for the Scottish Government to sort out the SNP's NHS waiting lists? Record investment in the defence industry in the Clyde to defend our nation, which the SNP object to. Investment in clean energy, critical for jobs in Glasgow, and continued support for the Glasgow and Clyde Valley City deal demonstrates that Scotland runs through the heart of this Labour government, and it's time we turfed out the SNP after 18 years of failure.
In the spending review today, we've set out investment in defence to support jobs in Scotland, investment in Acorn to support jobs in Scotland, investment in nuclear, which will benefit the people of Scotland with lower bills, and a record settlement for the Scottish Government. It's up to them now to use that money wisely. I wouldn't hold out much hope under the SNP.
Esther McVeigh.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Now, I know the Chancellor considers herself to be a world-leading economist, so can she tell me how it is that everyone in the country knew that by hiking taxes on employers' national insurance contribution, making it more expensive to employ people, would destroy jobs, destroy businesses, and destroy the economy. But the only people who didn't know that was her and her socialist boss.
Chancellor the Exchequer.
I'm sorry to disappoint the Right Honourable Lady, but there are 500,000 more jobs in Britain since the last general election, and business confidence is going up.
Stephen Sander.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My constituency of Loughborough, Shepshed and the Villages is in the East Midlands, a region that has been overlooked for too long. That ends today. Firstly, with changes to the Green Book, which we all welcome, more money outside of London. I hope my colleagues don't mind too much. And secondly, over £100 billion of investment. So can the Chancellor please set out how today's investment will get bills down and wages rising in my constituency of Loughborough, Shepshed and the Villages?
Chancellor.
I thank my honourable friend for welcoming the changes to the Green Book, which will better enable the government to invest and will stop the situation where the Treasury used to wield the Green Book against local communities and the investments that they wanted to make. And this was a good spending review for the East Midlands, as my honourable friend mentioned, with investment in nuclear fusion and also in small modular reactors. And many businesses in those supply chains right across the East Midlands will benefit from that significant investment and the jobs it brings too.
Bobby Dean.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Last year during the mayoral election, Sadiq Khan claimed that a Labour mayor working for a Labour government will be a game changer for the city. But just now he's released a statement criticising the spending review for underfunding the Met Police, failing to invest in our transport infrastructure and potentially making the housing crisis in our capital worse. Was Sadiq Khan wrong to put his trust in this Labour government?
Yes. Well, for London today, we have increased the spending power of the police by 2.3% in real terms every year, a record investment in the Affordable Homes Programme to include building new homes in London, free school meals, lifting around 10,000 children in London out of poverty, and much more. We've also backing a third runway at Heathrow and investing in tunnelling to take HS2 to Euston. So this is a good budget for London, but most importantly, it is a good spending review for the whole of the United Kingdom.
Alex Baker.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I congratulate the Chancellor on the spending review and welcome both her commitment to defence spending and to us being a defence industrial superpower, which is so vital for my community of Aldershot and Farnborough. This week, my honourable friend for York Outer and I published our report on rewiring British defence finance to support her work to fire up our defence industrial base. As part of this, will the Chancellor support my campaign for a UK-led multilateral defence, security and resilience bank to finance our national resilience, support our allies and keep our country safe?
I thank my honourable friend for that question, and I also would like to thank her for the work that her and the member for York Outer, my honourable friend for York Outer, have done in making the moral case for financial services firms investing in defence, because this is what keeps our country safe. And as we uplift our defence spending, we do want to get value for money for that. That's why we were pleased in the deal that we did with the EU that we have also secured a defence industrial partnership with the EU.
Adrian Ramsey.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Across the country, people are seeing their health services severely overstretched. School head teachers are faced with having to make cuts. And of course, the most vulnerable people in society are now facing cuts to disability benefits. The BBC has produced analysis on the Chancellor's statement today, saying that her figures will show a sharp decline in budgets for public services after 2026. So isn't the statement that we've seen today a matter of smoke and mirrors? And will she instead consider the growing call for a wealth tax on the ultra-wealthy so she can raise the tens of billions extra needed to support our public services and restore the much-needed pride and hope in Britain?
Not supporting it.
It's difficult to know whether the honourable gentleman supports the spending review and the additional money that we put into public services today, or he's against it. The settlement for the NHS is 3% real terms growth a year. For the police, it's 2.3% a year. It's an increase in per pupil funding, as well as real terms increasing for the schools budget. So I'm not exactly sure what his complaint is.
Nick Smith.
Madam Deputy Speaker, there was a terrible, dangerous coal slip in my constituency last autumn. So the coal tips safety funding that's to be announced today is hugely welcomed. Yeah. It's great to see our Labour government standing up for Wales. Yeah. Looking forward, can the Chancellor please review the miners' staff superannuation scheme? Hard-working families deserve fairness in their retirement. I'm sure she'll give them a fair hearing.
Yeah. I thank my honourable gentleman, my honourable friend, for that question. I'm really pleased we were able to make this multi-year commitment around coal tips safety. We put in money as a government last year in the spending review, but that was just for 1 year. And what we've been able to do is give certainty that money will be available to do that vital work that is necessary. I thank him for welcoming it. It's a shame that Plaid Cymru did not welcome it. On the issue of miners' pension, my honourable friend has been a staunch supporter of reforms to the miners' pension scheme. We made reforms in the budget last year, but I'll make sure that the relevant minister meets with my honourable friend to discuss what more we can do to ensure a fair pension for miners in retirement.
Sarah Olney.
Madam Deputy Speaker, London MPs were hoping to hear more about infrastructure investment in the capital in this spending review today. We are looking for spending on the Bakerloo line extension, the Croydon bottleneck. I even dare to dream that Hammersmith Bridge might one day be fixed. But all we've heard from the Chancellor is her reiterated support for Heathrow expansion. Now, the Chancellor will know that Heathrow expansion is opposed by every political party in the capital, including the Mayor of London. It is not welcome. The negligible economic benefits of expanding Heathrow are not supported, do not support the massive environmental and noise impacts that it will have on many people across the capital, particularly my constituents in Richmond Park. So can I ask her to look again at her support for Heathrow and consider the greater merits of many other infrastructure projects across London? Thank you.
She started that question wanting to be a builder, and she ended that question by being a blocker. I guess that's not surprising, because the Liberal Democrats voted against the planning and infrastructure bill that came through Parliament yesterday, while we on this side of the House supported it because we want to get Britain building and to create prosperity and wealth in all of our communities. We've provided in the spending review today an integrated settlement for the Mayor of London, and also a multi-year settlement for Transport for London. In addition to that, we have supported expansion at City, and we've got a in principle commitment to expansion with a second runway at Gatwick. This government is backing London, but most importantly, we're a government for the whole country, which is why we've announced significant investments right across the UK today, which are much needed.
Claire Hannah.
The SDLP's priority continues to be funding Northern Ireland on the basis of need, and I urge focused action so we can have sustainable public services and hopefully stable politics to start to deliver in health and education and the squeeze in housing and childcare. I also warmly welcome the funding allocation for Casement Park, which represents much more than just a stadium. It is a home for Ulster GAA to match the wonderful homes we have for soccer and rugby in Northern Ireland, and it's a flagship venue for West Belfast and an economic opportunity for the whole city. Would the Chancellor agree with me that while there's a way to go to get the funding for the stadium that the GAA's hundreds of thousands of supporters and volunteers deserve, that the onus is now on the Stormont Executive, on Sinn Féin, on the DUP, on the Alliance Party to get moving, to end a decade of dither and delay, and to finally get Casement Park built?
Well, this government has provided £50 million in the spending review today, but we've also done much more, I hope, for Northern Ireland, with a record settlement, a record since devolution, and also significant investment in our defence sector, where Northern Ireland has a proud history of producing for the UK's defence needs.
Martin Vickers.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Of course, I welcome the continuing support for Scunthorpe Steelworks. I would just gently remind the Chancellor that that came 7 months after I first raised the issue here in the House, and we then had the panic of the Saturday sitting in April. But moving on from that, she mentioned the support for the Viking CCS project, which again is something I've been lobbying for a long time. Could she give a little more detail in terms of the time frame for that?
I thank the honourable gentleman for welcoming what we did with British Steel at Scunthorpe. I know that he's been a strong voice advocating for British Steel in Scunthorpe, unlike some of our late arrivals in another party. On Viking and carbon capture and storage, really pleased alongside the Acorn investment in Aberdeenshire to be able to announce that today. The Energy Secretary will set out in due course the timing and the money available. But after what we did with Merseyside and Teesside at the end of last year, investing in carbon capture and storage, we're now in a position to put investment into that second tranche, Aberdeen and also in the Humber.
Yasmin Qureshi.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I want to thank the Chancellor for all the spending commitments that she's made, whether it's education, whether it's health or transport. But I want to particularly refer to the £39 billion that she's committing to housing. In my constituency of Bolton South and Walkden, thousands of families are still waiting for a social home, with Bolton housing waiting list about 20,000. Can I ask the Chancellor what some of the money or funding is directed towards building more social housing in areas like mine so that we can meet the need of our constituents?
My honourable friend speaks powerfully about the desperate need for more social and affordable homes in all of our communities, including in Bolton. And this multi-year commitment with £39 billion of investment will help to build the social and affordable homes that our country desperately needs. And the Department for the MHCLG will now work with local authorities to bring forward those plans and get Britain building those homes that we need.
Dr. Ben Spencer.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. What's in some ways most interesting about the spending review is what's not mentioned. No mention of the Road Thames scheme, no mention of our rivers, no mention of the Animal Plant and Health Agency in Newhall, no mention of improvements to rail despite nationalisation of South Western Railway, almost in fact no mention of the South East at all, despite us saying that this is a spending review for the whole UK. But they do effectively confirm a third runway, despite no local engagement. Can I invite the Chancellor to come to Reino Unido and Weybridge to meet people and see if their priorities are indeed hers, as she claims?
It's difficult to understand exactly what the Conservative critique is of this spending review, because the Shadow Chancellor says that we should spend less, and the Honourable Gentleman has just asked us to spend more. Now, if you want to spend more, if honourable members on any side of the House want to spend more, they need to say where the money is going to come from. I'm not sure if he's got an answer to that.
Lola McAvoy.
Mr. Speaker, I welcome the Chancellor's statement and her steely determination to make sure that everyone in Darlington is better off. I particularly welcome the capital infrastructure projects that are not only essential for sovereign security, but also for regional growth. Does she agree with me that these projects will be transformational for engineering and fabricating SMEs in my constituency, many of whom were set up and staffed by incredibly high-skilled people who found themselves out of a job when the last government turned its back on British foundation industries?
I thank my honourable friend for that question. Look, she's absolutely right that what this spending review does through its investment in infrastructure is create jobs in our supply chains for small businesses in communities right across our country. And that investment in some of our foundational industries like steel offers real opportunities for good jobs, paying decent wages, good unionised jobs. And I'm really proud to be able to set out that investment and the jobs that young people in Darlington and around the country will be able to access because of the choices we've made today.
Chris Coughlin.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As the Chancellor knows, our economy will only escape its difficult place if we raise economic productivity. And on the Treasury Select Committee, I introduced the Chancellor to London Business School's Paolo Sirocco's research on how using public R&D, especially defence spending, can help to do this. In the spring statement, the government used Professor Sirocco's research to upgrade long-term GDP forecasts by 11 billion a year. That's how you pay for it. So I strongly welcome the government's commitment to investing in public R&D in the spending review. But how will the Chancellor follow through to ensure that the R&D will be used to crowd in and stimulate public investment, especially from the more innovative, high-tech startups and venture capital firms, which is necessary to realise the potential of Professor Sirocco's research?
I thank the honourable gentleman for that question. For every £1 of government investment in R&D, it crowds in £2 of private investment and returns £7 of benefit to the wider economy. That's why we put £86 billion of investment into R&D over the course of this spending review.
Imran Hussain.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'm sure people in your constituency, Madam Deputy Speaker, my constituency, my honourable friend for Shipley's constituency, and indeed in the Chancellor's own constituency, will welcome greatly the 2.1 billion in a new tram and in particular a new bus station in Bradford, as well as the billions for social and affordable housing that is much needed. But the Chancellor will know in my constituency over half of all children are still growing up in poverty, which is true of constituencies of many honourable members. Child poverty is not a statistic, it's a national disgrace. And it's as a direct result of 14 years of ideological austerity by those opposite. Today's statement is a step in the right direction, in particular with the announcement of 500,000 more children eligible for free school meals. But frankly, it doesn't go far enough. So will the Chancellor tell me what further measures this government will announce to alleviate and finish child poverty, including scrapping the 2-child limit, which continues to put thousands of children into poverty?
I thank my honourable friend for that question, and I appreciate him welcoming the £2.1 billion for West Yorkshire Combined Authority, which will help pay for mass transit to connect Leeds and Bradford, but also Kirklees and Calderdale. In the statement today, we were able to provide money for free school meals for 500,000 children, lifting 100,000 out of poverty, as well as continuing to roll out breakfast clubs and the Warm Homes programme, which will help insulate and bring down the bills for millions of families. In addition, we increased the national living wage by nearly 7%, and the Employment Rights Bill will ensure that more people have security and dignity at work, all part of our plan for change and lifting children and families out of poverty.
Sir Gavin Williamson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. HS2 owns vast swathes of the Staffordshire countryside. In fact, it owns a third of all the properties in the village of Hopton. This is having an enormous impact on residents and causing an enormous blight. Could the Chancellor set out to the House and to so many constituents of mine and right across Staffordshire as to when they're going to know whether the farmers are going to be able to have their land back and whether villages will be able to return to normal life with people being able to move into those empty houses?
Well, I'm sure that the right honourable gentleman has apologised to his constituents for the total mess that the party opposite made of HS2. Now, we're fixing their mess, getting a grip of the costs of that project. But frankly, for the honourable gentleman to raise HS2 after the mess they made of it, it is astounding.
Melanie Ward.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Almost 20 years of the SNP in government in Scotland, and we have 43,000 Fifers on an NHS waiting list. and a growing gap in educational achievement between kids from the richest and poorest areas. Less than 1 year of a Labour UK government, and we are delivering record funding for Scotland, falling energy bills, a pay rise for 8,000 Fifers, new defence jobs in Fife, and an announcement that will be warmly welcomed by my constituents today, new investment in the renewal of Kirkcaldy Town Centre and the potential of our amazing seafront. Does the Chancellor agree that this is the difference a Labour government makes?
I thank my honourable friend for that question. And the work that we are doing as a Labour government will reduce inequality. We're giving a pay rise to millions of workers, defence jobs paying a decent wage, GB Energy headquartered in Scotland. And today I've been able to announce additional investment in the seafront in her constituency for the economic benefits that that will bring.
Robin Swan.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. An NHS fit for the future. So can I congratulate the Chancellor and the Health Secretary in that investment in the health service in England. But in that real term spend and the money allocated to Northern Ireland, would the Chancellor encourage the Northern Ireland Executive at a minimum to see that same investment in the health service in Northern Ireland? Because Northern Ireland Executive has been working with single-year budgets since 2016. And would the Chancellor agree with that with this SR, it allows them to set a multi-year recurrent budget that allows the transformation of health services and other public services in Northern Ireland?
The honourable gentleman makes a really important point, because what we did today wasn't just set out money for next year, but for day-to-day spending money for the next 3 years and for capital for the next 5 years. And that is vital wherever you are in the UK, that local councils, devolved administrations, community groups can plan for the future with confidence. And that's what we've done with this spending review. And so I would urge devolved administrations to do similar and make those multi-year settlements to give certainty for the future.
Yeah. Rachel Maskell.
Deputy Speaker, despite being the lowest funded unitary authority in the country, we are doing everything possible to drive down inequality in the city, but it stays at 13 years differential. So today's announcement, investment in health, investment in social housing,